Hello everyone, welcome to Rethinking the X-Files again. I'm Elton, this is Scott over in America.
This is Scott. Oh, this is Scott.
That is Scott, yes.
Yes. And this is Elton, or that is Elton, over there in the UK.
This is me, definitely. Yes, here is Rethinking the X-Files. I keep going to say Rethinking Lost. I must get out of that, even though that was years ago. Goodness me.
That's
anyway,
fine.
Yes, so we're here to talk about Babylon, Series 10, Episode 5. One more episode to go after this.
The penultimate episode.
Yeah. So, I suppose the only place we can start is your thoughts. How did you see this episode? What did you think? Did it capture you? Were you excited?
Well, I am a huge fan of alternate reality symmetry type things. Like, I like Superman versus Bizarro. I like Green Lantern versus Sinestro. I like Flash versus Reverse Flash. I like the chance to see what ifs. You know, what if Superman had landed in Russia instead of the United States? What if the worlds of Star Trek switched, and we have the famous Spock with a beard.
Right. Okay. Have you seen The Man in the High Castle then?
No, I have not. I do not have an Amazon account, but I'm very interested in that and looking forward to when I can see that. But there are many stories like that as well. That what if this had happened and that had happened? So I was pleased to have a chance to kind of get a what if with Mulder and Scully, even though I'm not as passionately connected to the characters. That was my initial impression. but faux Scully definitely got on my nerves as the episode went on. She's not a favorite of mine, and I gather from the internet she's not a favorite of many other people as well.
I can see sort of why, I suppose. Oh dear. Okay, so it wasn't. Where would you rate this episode so far?
I would rate it, I think, higher than most other people seem to have, but I would say, let's see, out of the 5, it's I'll go with the pilot is the one I enjoyed the most. The second episode I enjoyed as well, and this would fall right in that next bracket. Kind of, each of the other 3 had something that I liked about it and maybe didn't love about it. But I would put this 3 or 4, kind of even with the Weremonster.
Okay.
How about you?
Where would I put this? Every time I think about them, they change position. Mm-hmm. I am very fickle like that, and so it depends on how many times I brush my teeth in the day that it can actually change things. It's crazy, silly little things like that. I suppose I preferred it. I think even though I had fun talking about it, the Weremonster, I think that was my possibly least favourite.
Okay.
I think this is just above that.
Well, I definitely think that's the common consensus. If you'll indulge me for a minute, I'll read you the first sentence or two of 4 or 5 reviews.
Yeah, go for it.
So thestranger.com, which does a number of reviews, opens with, "There's been a pretty surefire indicator as to when a bad X-Files is about to start. The music." And then it goes on to say how this qualifies as just that. Variety, they start out with, oops, and I just scrolled right past it. Combining adult terrorism investigation with leaden comedy, faux spirituality, and an ill-advised honky-tonk dance sequence, this episode is arguably one of the most misguided entries in the series' history. The Wall Street Journal, in their recap, just simply starts with, "What? Exactly? was that? And we'll go to IGN here, who says a little more positively, I'll say this about the X-Files revival. The 6-episode non-miniseries format certainly allows for some interesting tales. Not all of them land, but they sure are unique. So I think it's probably not at the top of most people's lists from this collection of 5 so far.
Yeah, I think my reason for it being so down is not the reason for that all the papers had it. I think that they saw the Mulder trip as the worst part of this episode, which I can see why. I think that this was possibly one of the weakest written for me. It felt very, very thin.
Yeah, I thought it was hasty. Like, it got from point A to point B without the development you'd like to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to read the plot of this one, just to get us all back into where we are. I'll just read a couple of lines from this. It says, I'm not going to go from the Wikipedia, because that is terrible. When a terrorist ends up in a coma after a bombing, Scully and Mulder are called by their doppelganger agents to try and communicate with the man. Now that synopsis there is very short, very sweet, and pretty much sums up the whole episode, which was very thin on the ground. We get to meet doppelgangers, which I kind of liked. I had no problems with them. As soon as you see them walk in, you know what you're getting straight away. But it's still, these episodes feel like they're verging on the comedy every time now.
Well, we used the phrase self-parody last podcast, and I feel like there's a lot of tongue-in-cheekness to these episodes. Like wink, wink, nod, nod. You know, where you get what we're doing here. Did you catch that little line that Scully says there? And you know, we're acknowledging this fan theory. So yeah, I think there's a lightheartedness and kind of a not so seriousness to the message as well.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the agents first. Let's get these out the way.
Okay.
We had agents. What was her first name? Oh, it doesn't even say. Agent Einstein and Agent Miller.
Yes.
They are our doppelgangers for Fox Mulder and Dana Scully. They resemble each of our characters that we know and love.
Yes.
They have the same jobs, or same kind of jobs. They're in the same sort of ballpark as where our Mulder and Scully are. And
yes,
so,
Scully and Einstein are both practicing licensed physicians, but I got the sense that, and again, I don't know Scully as well, but Einstein seemed more a career FBI agent, where maybe because I'm introduced to the character at a much older age, I got the sense more that like Mulder had been there first, and Scully kind of was I picture her almost having been brought in as part of an investigation and never leaving. Is that her origin, or was she an agent right from the beginning?
Well, she was, and from my recollection, I'm going to get people screaming at their MP3 players.
Well, you can blame me, because
okay,
I should know, but I don't.
As long as I can blame someone, that's fine. Mulder was already there. He was down in the basement.
Yes.
Scully was assigned to keep tabs on him, to find out what he's actually finding out, find out what he's doing, where he's going, is it legitimate? She was their mole, but she was the mole that he knew about, and he knew that he was being investigated to find out what he is doing. And so
she was an agent, but just not. She was in a more serious part of the more respected aspect of the FBI.
Yeah, and her assignment was to tag with Mulder to find out what the hell is actually going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like that, because we're keeping tabs on Mulder, but you know about it. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's the the secret squirrel thing, but everyone knows about it, so everyone should be fine about it. So we're not really tracking you, but we are really tracking you. But you know about it, so you can't be angry about it.
Yes.
That's the way I presented it. Yeah, and so I feel Agent Einstein is more the younger Scully, but she's very career orientated. She wants to hit the beats and go up the food chain, shall we say?
Do you think she's there to keep tabs on Miller? See, I didn't get that sense. You had mentioned that once before, and I was looking for that dynamic between them, and I saw them more as true partners. And she was insulted that he was working with Scully.
I don't think. I don't know.
So not necessarily. Yeah, not necessarily that origin.
Not really. No, I suppose not. No.
Okay. Now she talked about how she felt so bad for Scully and couldn't imagine why they were still together after 20-something years. And I think Miller says, "Well, why do you think?" And she says, "Well, clearly she's in love with him. There's no other reason." And I took that throughout the episode to be self-referential. She's projecting. And maybe this is the way it was in those early seasons of the X-Files, but that there's meant to be feelings on the part of Einstein for Miller. The jealousy, the why is she still with him? If she doesn't really respect his views of the world, and then deep down she does, because that's just what makes him him.
Yeah, I agree with the self referencing. Yeah. I got that as well. It's a classic case of mirroring what you see and saying, it's pretty much the girl that you give dead arms to, you fancy the pants off.
Yeah. Well, and it was kind of, we learned more about her than we did about Scully, I thought. Where on the flip side, we learned more about Mulder than we did about Miller from the parent.
I felt we got more of Miller from what he'd done than actual personality. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel that we got any personality from him, whereas Einstein, why are they gone for that name? I do not know. It's such a big, obvious name to throw at an agent. Mm-hmm. And it's a bit too obvious to throw.
And they reacted to it as well.
Yeah, and I found, even talking about it now, saying Einstein, it's really hard to get past that name and not think of certain things connected to that name.
Well, she quoted Einstein too. So they definitely used it. They used it for the reaction from Scully and Mulder, and they used it for that kind of double meaning of a quote. But it added a lot. And maybe she will turn out to be a key character in the X-Files universe. I'm not sure. Okay,
let's get this over and done with then. Are we going to, in future episodes, because we're bound to get another season of this now, I think, will we see these guys again? Are these a classic sign of agent come, agent go? Or is it an agent that would maybe turn up every now and again? Are these the guys that could possibly take over from these, from Mulder and Scully?
I do not think spin-off. I've seen that thrown out there. I don't think you go look-alike for a spin-off, because it just draws too many comparisons, and because I don't think these are true copies. I think, like you said, this is the younger Scully. She hasn't been softened yet. She doesn't believe yet. Mm-hmm. So it's some of the more unlikable elements of her personality, and Mulder's not as grounded, or Miller is not as grounded as Mulder has become. So it's some of the least likable elements. It's like the guy who's always stoned that you can't have a serious conversation with. It's funny for a little bit, and then come on, dude, we got to talk. the way they were defined and how they're a fraction of those characters, I don't think they can become replacements. That being said, I can see them being periodic, recurring characters, because you can only really have one carbon copy. You're not going to have Agent Tesla, who is another different version of Scully. And, I mean, you have, that is the one. That is the one that they can really use. I don't think they can even go the route of a family member. I mean, this is it. This is your one chance to have a parallel character. You can have an opposite.
Yeah.
You could have a pair of agents where Agent Tesla is the dreamer, and Agent Muldoon is the scientific male character. But I don't think you can go the other way. What do you think?
Oh, do you know what this reminded me of? The Indiana Jones movie that nobody talks about apart from me, where we had Shia LaBeouf, and he was Indiana Jones' son. And at the very end of the movie, we had almost the passing of the torch, where he dressed like Indy. He grabbed the hat, nearly put the hat on, but didn't quite get the hat, and Indiana Jones walked away with the hat. As soon as these guys walked in and you saw the doppelganger, that just sprang to mind. Okay, do they want to pass it on because they look so similar, because they act so similar, because their names are Miller and Mulder, and it's just got that swap around it. And I'd be happy. I was quite happy with these characters. I don't know whether a spin-off would be good or whether they would take over from these guys. I don't think you can do the X-Files, the solid X-Files, with just these other two characters. I don't think that would work.
Well, what is the fate of the T-1000 X-File agent? Where is he? What did he replaced Mulder, correct?
Yeah, he did. I do not know. I think he was put into a vat of lava or something like that.
I don't know. We haven't met him, obviously. No one even talks about him. He's not referenced in any way.
No, he hasn't been referenced. I haven't heard anything about him. I haven't heard any of his comeuppances or anything like that. What happened at the end of that season that he was in, or... do you know what? I don't know. I haven't reached that far.
Was he in the movies? Have you seen the movies?
He's not in the first movie, and as much as I've seen of the second movie, he isn't in the second movie.
And are you familiar with... See, we need Doreen in the chat room. Are you familiar with how it comes to be that Mulder moves on to Californication and and all his other big movies and stuff that he went on to do? But like he's obviously not killed off. He's is he committed? Is he disappear, abducted?
I don't know. I see now people are screaming at us. We set this out at the very beginning that we're not experts. So
no.
That is our fallback.
Well, it's a gap that probably was addressed in the movie. I would think the movie they made most recently that was intended to be kind of a tie-up.
Well, I haven't heard anything or seen anything so far. I think I'm around about halfway through that movie at the moment. I'm just slowly watching it and trying to digest it slowly. So I haven't heard anything or seen anything of it yet. Then again...
I raise it when you talk about if they're going to continue. So they've obviously tried to continue once. They didn't go the Bewitched second Darren version and just put in a doppelganger for Mulder. They didn't just replace the actor; they replaced the character.
Yeah.
And I thought it lasted like another season or two, but they've decided to go back. They rebooted the season with the originals. So they're definitely invested in that dynamic, I guess.
Oh yeah, and newcomers to this, like my son and the young teens that should be trying to get into this, if they don't know any of the history, they don't know that Mulder has gone and then come back. They don't know that there were 2 movies that they've been in. They don't know how the Scully was introduced to Mulder because they haven't visited them episodes yet. And so that is why, is it Patrick? I can't remember his name now. The T-1000. Let's just call him the T-1000.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's why we haven't heard anything of him. Wouldn't
they don't need him.
Well, wouldn't it throw a bit of a spanner in the works if suddenly he just turned up and everyone was pally-pally with him?
I guess it depends on the whole dynamic of how he came in, and like, did he come in and badmouth Mulder? Was it? I thought, on the outside looking in and being aware of the casting changes and all, that it was not a good thing that he went in. Like, that he was either forced in. The way you described Scully's role was kind of how I had perceived from the outside, that, you know, he was part of coming in and, you know, I don't know what's going on in these X-Files here. I'm going to straighten this out. You know,
the problem with changing a character or introducing a character and removing one of the main characters is people tend to not like change. Mm-hmm. And so if you change one of the main people out of it, you remove half of that dynamic that they are fully invested in. And whether the season or 2 or 3 that the T-1000 was in, whether they were good or not, and from what I've heard, they are very good. Mm-hmm. It's just that people didn't like the change, and so didn't like him being in there. It's not more... not the fact that they didn't like him, it's just they didn't like the change, so they resent him being there, and so they resent that time period.
Yeah. Yeah, I admittedly, I don't know the whole dynamic of it. I would think, though, it's the kind of thing that would bother me less than like a reboot. I'm so frustrated by reboots of things that take names and reuse them unnecessarily, rather than creating a new sector of a fictional reality or universe. Like whether it be the Star Trek, how there was no reason to use the same characters, same ships. It didn't have to be the Enterprise and those same people. I would have preferred new characters coming in. You could still call it Star Trek. You could still be part of that same world. But when you reinvent things, the movies.
Yeah, the Abrams stuff.
So my preference would be to introduce a new character rather than to kind of reinvent, to recast a new Scully and a new Mulder. It could still be part of the X-Files world. Like they're talking about this 10 Cloverfield Lane movie. It's not a sequel, but it takes place in the same world.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean I have much happier about that than when it becomes kind of a just a reusing, a drawing upon familiarity unnecessarily. And even like with the Star Wars movies, sorry. All the similarities people point out between A New Hope and the new movie, we didn't get the same movie redone with new actors. We got a similar story, and but it's all in the same world.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's what I was going to ask you when we started this, when you talked about you didn't mind them as kind of a younger, fresher, if they want to extend the series and use these characters. Did you feel that way with the Star Wars movie, in that that they went with so many they went with a younger Luke type character and a younger Darth Vader type character? Like, it was similar but younger. Are you seeing the parallel?
Yeah. Okay, right. Without spoiling the Star Wars, I didn't.
It's too late. You can spoil it. No, go ahead. I respect it. Go ahead.
Well, I know certain people haven't seen it, so I don't want to spoil it for anyone. I have no problems in the characters. The problem I have was the regurgitation that we had from every single frame that we saw there. That was my problem. I felt as if it's like playing an old video game, and you go up on a level, and let's say you get to level 5, and then the background changes, and it's gone from black to blue, and the game hasn't changed. The level structure hasn't changed. It's just the background is different. And that's what I felt about the Star Wars.
It was more than just an homage or a nod to it. It was cookie cuttering, almost like.
Oh, yeah. So badly that I have no interest in this 10 Cloverfield Lane whatsoever. Just for the fact that JJ is part of it. Really, he's just go away. I have don't want to be anywhere near that man ever again. Well,
but you think, I mean, I guess because the storytelling would be different. I mean, as long as they don't sit there and do regurgitations of the same episodes, you don't mind two doppelganger characters coming in, as long as their week-to-week activity is novel.
I don't mind the doppelganger thing if they want to go back over old cases, that's cool. But don't try and palm it off as a new case.
And don't have reproduce shot for shot. Same reaction, same. Don't make it the same episode, same outcome. I guess.
Yeah. Do your little spin on it. And I'm thinking of Star Wars now. I'm actually physically angry now.
Sorry. Well, I mean, it was a refreshing. Here we are, 30 years later, and they chose to go the route of refreshing the cast, and we don't know that that's what they're doing with this X-Files episode. I don't suspect they are, but it definitely had that. Here's the old and new in the same room, and like a shell game almost. Follow the ball, and there go their agents. Which ones are they? Oh, look, they look fresher and prettier and perkier and cheaper and signed to a 6-year contract.
Yeah, I think the joke was, look, they look so similar, they act so similar. It's a mirror image of these guys, but we're not really going to run with it. It was good. I had no problems with it. I wouldn't have any problems watching an episode with these guys, just solely taking the reins. But whether it would work or not, I do not know. I'm willing to give it a go, though. But I still like our old friends.
Well, I think that's an intentional and expected outcome of it, too. Like, you had Einstein, and you're inherently going to compare her to Scully. And you're going to like Scully better than her, I think, nearly universally. And even Miller. I think Miller was likable, but Mulder was more likable. And so just by default, there's a preference for what you have already, rather than these two being any kind of viable replacement, because you don't like them as much as the existing characters.
Yeah. I know I said it last week, but once again, this is just testing the water. And there's going to be so many people producing podcasts, writing forum posts, having blog posts out there. People are going to read them. Word of mouth is going to get round, and the producers and writers are going to hear about these feelings, about these people. And once again, it's just them. Every episode that we've had has been slightly different. It's not following a similar sort of story. And they're probing and prodding and testing every aspect that they can within these 6 episodes.
See what sticks.
Yes, see what sticks, see what people like, see what people don't like. As soon as they hear, oh, why are they bringing them in? We don't like that. We like our old characters. Bang, they're not going to use them. Or if they heard it and it worked, then they might have used them. It's just a test. This is just 6 episodes of testing us out. Which I don't mind.
No. And there were some differences. You mentioned that most X-Files episodes don't have a resolution. You know, the bad guy gets away, or it's kind of open-ended. This was one of the few times we had closure. Yeah. Really kind of across the board. Well, except for the very final scene, there was really nothing left to wonder about. I thought you kind of knew where everyone was, what they were doing. Bad guys were neatly all taken care of, and
yeah,
it's a very much self-contained episode.
Yeah, there wasn't. This was a very, like I said before, a very thin X-Files episode. It was almost a NCIS type thing where you had police coming in, investigating, splitting up so they can investigate one place and another person can investigate another place. They come back together, case solved, thank you very much, go home for dinner.
I think maybe it's because, again, it's only one season for me here, but what's been missing all along, and it affects my interpretation of things. I don't really care that much about it, but I'm not able to fill in the gaps the way I can with other shows that I get really invested in. Like I feel like with other shows, I have an understanding of what goes on off camera.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it's in the show, it goes from Friday to Monday. Somehow I kind of have a sense of what happened over the weekend, why this didn't happen. And what I feel like with X-Files this season has been things happen and characters interact and react in a way that I'm not finding credible. Like the whole way how the two agents come in and Mulder and Scully are in the office downstairs. They come and they ask for help. Sorry, can't help you, and they leave. And then each agent secretly calls their opposite doppelganger and makes plans to meet. Where I feel like in many other shows, I have an expectation that off camera, they're working on a case together, doing something together, and maybe I'm forcing that, maybe I'm just expecting that, but it just seems unnatural for that to have happened. You know, like they were just in the office together, they're working together, they're close, they have a connection. That's a missing element to me.
Yeah, it felt awkward, didn't it? The way that they did it, because they were so far apart. It was later that day, and it just so happened that they phoned at exactly the same time.
Well, they drop everything and go to Texas, which I mean that's a far trip they're talking about, you know. And even in the previous episode, and I know they work independently sometimes, but they don't have that connection of partners that you will get on another show where you feel like one always knows where the other one is, and they have. I don't know if I'm explaining it well, but it's a convenience of plot that they're doing these things, but it's a lack of character relationship development that maybe I would feel differently had it been my 10th season watching, but just seems so often, so conveniently, oh, let's just put this character here, oh, and let's put this character over there, that it almost has the look of like a poorly edited or a thinly written story, because it's missing that implied action off camera. I don't know if I'm explaining that too well.
Oh, yeah. Do you think the way that they went with the splitting up of the partners, do you think the episode would have worked just as well, or would it have been misbalanced if we had Miller and Einstein going to the terrorist and Mulder and Scully doing the trip?
I think it would have worked, but it would have arrived at a different place. Where here you had the winning over of Einstein. I don't think that would have happened. What you just described would have been more of a cementing of that relationship of Scully and Mulder, how they truly are a unique pairing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it would have gone somewhere. It would have been a success, I think. It just would have served a different purpose. So maybe they are trying to make these characters ones that have a place in the future.
Yeah. I just feel the episode would have been very misbalanced towards the Mulder and Scully story.
Right.
Because we're so invested in them too. And then to have half the episode without either one of them on screen or involved in some way, then you would not have cared about Einstein and Miller and what their shenanigans were up to.
Well, they could have been anybody then. If you're not going to use the lack of belief and the want to believe of those two characters, I mean, really putting them in there with the I don't know what kind of machine it was, but watching the brainwaves, there's not much belief there. I mean, that was one of the weaker approaches to take. I thought that part was more about Scully's remorse with her mother, that she wished she had thought of that last week.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And she actually mentions at one point, like, oh, I lost my mother, and, you know, this might seem like I have a personal quest to you, but I do. It's because of what happened with my mother. But the actual, I need you to trust me, and let's try this. That was a kind of a plausible thing. Like, let's check for brainwave reaction. You're basically doing a lie detector test in a coma state.
Yeah, I didn't get that. I knew that her mother had died the previous episode. I knew that she had that relationship and she wanted to go through with it, but I didn't get from it that she'd regretted that hadn't thought about doing that prior. Like,
yeah, she definitely mentions that in some way, that like kicking myself for not having thought of this last week or
yeah.
when it was. But I didn't see that as like I think Einstein would have bought into that.
It's very scientific, isn't it?
Yeah, you didn't need the fact that Scully has come a long way. In fact, she proposes it. So I mean, it's so I think you're right. If you had Scully and Mulder tripping, and Einstein and Miller in the room, they could have been anybody, and there really would have been no gravity to that because you don't even have the mother being in the coma last week.
That's true. Yeah, you lose all of that, don't you?
And then you just have two wacky agents coming in, going, "Stop! We know who, we know what he's saying."
Yeah. Well, okay. They split up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what we see a bomb go off, and we're confronted with the terrorists that they want to interrogate somehow. Scully and Miller go off and do the interrogation, but they are confronted with, it's only one that they're confronted with, but someone wants to stop or remove the life from this terrorist.
And it was sketchy. Like, they just seemed...
Well,
they didn't seem on the up and up. I at first thought they weren't even agents.
Well, were they agents? They got through the first layer of agents standing outside the door anyway, didn't they? Mm-hmm. So they must have some sort of agency type, maybe false credentials or ways in. I do not know.
Right. My first thought was they were affiliated with the terrorists. They were just trying to plug the gap. I wasn't thinking corrupt government until on a rewatch. Then I thought that. And then the nurse was another aspect. And so then I wasn't sure if it just was supposed to send the message of he's a villain. Nobody wants him to live. And that just makes what Miller accomplishes seem more impressive.
Yeah. Because, okay, the agents, I felt that they were more shady than anything. I felt that they were... So, at one point, I thought that they were there to finish the job that he should have completed. In other words, killing himself.
Right.
But they were from his side of things. And on both watches, I got views from both sides, whether they were agents, but terrorist cells in the agency. Mm-hmm. I wasn't too sure about that. And the bloody nurse done the same thing to me again. First time I thought she was just from the terrorist side of things, and she was there just to finish him off and then walk out the door and then disappear. Not really a nurse. She's like the Joker.
Right, like she was waiting for them to leave the room all along. It wasn't a matter of personal grief or something.
But then the second time round, watching her do it, and then she gives all this spiel about
how unworthy he is to live, and
this monster, and I have to pay all my taxes and stuff like that. And she starts bashing on about home security and stuff, and you think, okay, maybe she just is a woman who doesn't think that the resources should be going to that place, and she is just going to turn him off. And so there was it was conflicted, and it wasn't very clear as to where the nurse or the agencies lie, where their allegiances lie.
Right. I'm left thinking the nurse was just the public sentiment, and that the agents may have been part of something bigger. And I'm thinking they were real agents, but I'm not sure if they just also were filled with hate or if they were on some more sort of mission. Because it was weird. Then they came back later with the evacuation order, and like my first thought was, they're trying again to get to the agent. But then I think that was legit. I don't know if it was legitimate, because then they had the FBI outside. It was it's tough to read.
Well, on the evacuation bit, the guy coming in saying, there's going to be an evacuation, we're going to clear everything out, he still seemed sketchy as well.
Yes, but also angry. He's kind of speaking the same way the nurse did, like, well, who do you think's behind it? It's his friends, and they're all want to go. I don't want to let him die, because then he'll be with his virgins and all. He sounds just like the disgruntled policeman. Yeah. But then they let the mother in the building. They're outside blocking, but it's not like the hospital was empty completely. It wasn't evacuated, I guess is the best way to put it. They weren't whisking all the patients out.
Well, yeah, it seemed more like a ruse to get people out of that room, so they could finish him off. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Should we talk about the trip, or Mulder and Einstein?
Sure.
Because Mulder wants to connect with the terrorist using hallucinogenic drugs.
Yes, he believes he can enter that plane in between consciousness and death and life, and
I don't know. I had trouble thinking about this. I can understand if there's like a MacGuffin of a box that you're both connected to, and then you can join each other on that middle plane where you're linked up. Maybe even if they'd linked him up with brainwave things, that would have...
Or if he had passed away already and you were speaking to like a spirit or something, I could have seen that too.
Yeah.
Like he was haunted.
But to actually talk to someone who he thought was still alive and was proven to be still responsive with the brainwave machine, and then to have a trip and then meet them in a kind of trippy dream.
Well, a trip that went nowhere. It's not like you can connect the dots then and see, well, so it's like each experience was a different breaking down of a wall or something. It was seemingly very random, the different settings, except for the very final one where he sees the guy. It's almost like one of those death boats, kind of crossing the River Styx kind of thing.
Yeah, that was... I kind of like that setting. I had no problems in there. The only bit of the trip I didn't like was the dancing in the middle, and the achy breaky heart stuff.
Right. Well, that's like if you could look at it in hindsight and be like, okay, well, this, first he's going through like a dream state, so it's all like pillows or something. Like if you could look at each place he was and each thing he did and see it as like a layer of getting to that spot, I would have enjoyed that more. But yeah, it did just was silly, and it reminded me of other scenes I've seen of Duchovny in Aquarius and I think Californication too, where it's just the standard drugged out scene.
Right. Okay.
Blurry camera shots and
I quite liked
voices.
Quite liked the blurry camera shots. I thought they were really good. I liked the walking through the hospital and giving high fives, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the road,
it snaps into focus and he's doing the achy breaky line dancing. That's that's a jolt to something like.
Yeah.
Well, so what we had in the bar. And the dance scene, and there were some key characters at different points, familiar faces, and he goes from that to the alien, looks like an alien bed platform kind of thing, with Einstein as the dominatrix, and then from there to the boat, but not with the terrorist in sight. He's more looking at the rowers or the whip. What was it? The smoking man, that was the one who was telling them, if you want the truth, stay here, or you're the right place.
I took that as more like a self-conscious thing, trying to whip him into shape. Right,
and then it ends with him talking to the terrorist, which even that, it took me two watches to even catch the part where he was whispered to.
Mm-hmm.
And then he snaps out of it, in the bed.
Yeah. Overall, did you enjoy the trip?
No. I did like the ambiguity, though, of did she really give him a placebo, or did she have a moment of faith and give him something?
Yeah. Okay, your thoughts. Did she give a placebo?
I think she gave him a placebo, but I would like it much better if it wasn't just Duchovny doing that to himself. Like if it was that she had a moment of faith, but I don't think she did. I think she just gave him the herbal and he did it on his own.
Yeah, we could go two ways with this tract. She wants to climb up her ladder. She wants to get to the highest position she can in her job.
Yeah.
And so from that stance, I would say that she gave him a placebo.
And called her boss. That's another. That would be evidence of doing nothing too.
But then if she's really conniving, she could maybe want to overdose him, knock him off, remove him from the whole picture, get her off of the X-Files, and then go further up. Oh, dearie me, I don't know what happened to him. He must have been off of his nut. He's been off of his nut all this time. X-Files are a waste of time. Thank you very much. Don't have to go down there ever again.
Well, that I could see. She has no ambition to take their place, at least down at the start of the episode. No desire to take his standing. But she mentions that Skinner blames his headaches on Mulder, so maybe in her thought, if she gets rid of him, it's a headache removed.
Possibly. For her boss as well, yeah. I don't. I wouldn't. She didn't seem the person to want to top someone in the FBI. That's just not cricket for her. But then again, if it was, then that is a cool little thing that could have been there.
Well, she's supposed to be Scully, so what would Scully have done? Early Scully.
Oh, I don't know.
Or is that part of the foil in that present-day Scully would have given him the drug? Season 1 Scully would have not. And that's supposed to be the comparison we realize.
Yeah, I think Season 1 wouldn't definitely not have gone along with it. Season 10, maybe. But then again, you're dealing with illicit drugs with the FBI. Do they really want to get caught dealing that sort of stuff out?
Well, I think they're at that point. What was it? Episode 2 we saw with the... it'll take about a week to get the paperwork processed. I think they're comfortable working in the gray area at this point.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
So I guess my thought would be our Einstein, who was supposed to represent early Scully, probably did not give him real drugs.
Yeah.
And it's as dissatisfying as it is for me. It's the power of faith and belief and how badly Mulder wants it to work that he finds a way to win out. Because she even says later on to Miller, it worked. It shouldn't have worked. Like she seems incredulous that he even had that reaction. It's when they're talking in the airport, I guess, at the very end.
Well, that's what the whole episode is all about. It's about the suggestion, though, isn't it? Mm-hmm. We're talking about... Is this an anti-American episode or anti-Islamic episode? I do not know, because they are talking about suggestion. We have the... I don't know how to put it, but the Americans, as the terrorist is driving along in the car, all the dirty looks at him, all the dirty comments at him, all the wrong comments at him, all the vile looks and daggers and comments and just crap forced onto him, which he didn't want or need. And so, is that the suggestion that he needs to go off and do this sort of stuff?
Well, Mulder does talk about the power of words, and they even have the debate that Einstein and Mulder briefly. She says, "I believe words can incite behavior, but they cannot kill. They can incite someone to kill, but they cannot kill."
Yeah.
So maybe it's supposed to be that same idea where Mulder believes that words can be a weapon, and ideas and such, that ideas can be a drug, not only be something that influences someone to use a real drug. That words and ideas can be a substitute for actual items.
Also, with Mulder taking these pills, even if he, in the back of his head, knows that they're a placebo, he still needs the agent to turn around and say, yes, I did give you something. And that is the suggestion that he needs, just to push him over on that edge and then take him down a path that he thought he wouldn't be able to go down.
Yeah, I think placebo works. There was just an advertisement on TV yesterday. I was saying to the kids that were watching, it was some drug, and they have the 1,000 qualifiers. I assume they do it where you live too, but in a commercial for a medicine, all 900 side effects are listed, and it's something that you'd never want to take the medicine when you hear all the stuff. And one of the things that flashed on the screen was this medicine, whatever it was for. I wish I could remember what it was, but it was something that it lowered. Oh, it was headache. Oh, it was Botox. It was Botox for migraine headaches.
Really?
So yes, and it had decreased headache frequency by 8 to 9 headaches per month versus 6 to 7 headaches per month in a placebo. And I had pointed out to the kids a couple of parts where I said, well, first of all, it doesn't sound like a big difference, but percentage-wise, I guess it is. And that's, when you do statistics and all, that all matters. But just the fact of a sugar pill, so telling someone here's a medicine that isn't real medicine, lowers your headaches by 6 to 7 a month. So, you can spend $200 for this medicine to maybe have 1 or 2 less headaches. Or you can take the sugar pill and get almost the same effect. So obviously the placebo effect is something very powerful. So maybe that was just the point of it there too, was he's such a believer. His beliefs are so strong and passionate that they can accomplish that.
Yeah.
He must have communicated. When you think about it, a lot of times in something like this, it's left open that, someone will have a sequence like this, but you can look around the episode and you're left wondering, did he have that experience or not? Because there was a matchbook and there was a phone call, and did he subconsciously piece all these things together and arrive at the the hotel from that, or was it he spoke to the guy? There was nothing here that could have been a source of that information.
No, that's true. Yeah, he must have got that from somewhere. That's the thing.
Right.
Did he get... Is that from his own consciousness, though?
Well, I mean, we didn't have anything. He didn't wake up there from his binge. We didn't even see him walking around the town. We never even saw the name of the hotel, I don't think, until that big reveal at the end.
Yeah.
So that's something I think you would see in a different type of show, but here it was left. There's no other source of that information.
Which is what leaves me a bit frustrated with this, because looking from the outside in, he has a placebo. He somehow gives himself a big buzz. He goes off. He has this dream that this terrorist has said this in the language that he doesn't understand, and yet that is the answer to what they're looking for. Is it just luck that he's come across this answer, or is his way of thinking that sometimes you can cross planes and really cross into other people's minds and get this sort of information, where he could be miles away from this person?
Yeah, did he have to be there? Well, he recognized the mother, and again, we have no other possible place that we were given, like they bumped into each other at the airport, or you're really missing that thing that would be in another show. So it's meant to be, I think, a true experience for him, and the mother gives us just enough to believe that the terrorist might be so filled with remorse and so much of a non-believer in the cause that he would be willing and want to even necessarily incriminate the rest of the group.
Yeah.
And then snap your fingers and all of a sudden the police are at the hotel in full force right at the correct hotel room. That was a bit of a leap for me, but I mentioned before I felt like the episode was choppy in that way. It made a lot of jumps from point A to point B without having a very plausible way of how that happened.
Yeah, well, we spent so long in looking at our doppelgangers in the same room and sizing them up that really we needed to just jump through the window and grab all the bad guys. And where I think more of a slow motion breaking the glass, bursting through realization that Mulder did actually get this right would have worked a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Just a slow, all the cards start tumbling down and falling into place where Mulder has guessed right or predicted right, and all of a sudden he becomes an X-File himself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like that. That he actually becomes an X. Oh, I'm going to write that down and send it off to Chris Carter.
Well, I know we're at about an hour, so I don't want to introduce too big of another topic, but I just curious. Obviously, this was not written as it finally ended up. There was probably another third of the episode that got cut out in editing. So what would you guess was filmed or in the script and then taken out? Because obviously there's gaps. There's things that would have been helpful to have. There's gaps in plot progression. What do you think was there and was decided extraneous?
Oh, I don't know.
Do you think we learned more about... I'm thinking we saw more of Miller and Einstein. A little bit more to make us feel beyond visually that they were Mulder and Scully. I mean, it's easy to make that jump because of a couple of comments and the appearance, but maybe the script might have had a little bit more that kind of... Maybe we saw them handle a different case and we heard a few comments that made us say, they sound just like Scully and Mulder.
See, I don't know whether they would have had any more extra scenes like that, because we did get I think we had enough of them. I think if there was anything that was taken out, it possibly would have been to do with Scully and her thing with her mother. And maybe even because she had the coin there as well, just to remind us that, the coin is there hanging around her neck.
That's true. We got a lot more of Mulder explaining himself to Einstein than we got of Scully explaining herself to Miller.
A little too much of him doing that. And so I'd take that as a maybe as she walks off.
Yeah. Yeah, so I could see that. That's about 5 minutes of script that made him imbalance by taking that out if it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And maybe they felt they had to leave that for Mulder because you really needed to see Einstein's total disregard for anything non-science.
Well, yeah, she didn't want to work with him whatsoever, did she? She just totally disregarded him. She didn't like his position, even down in the basement. She just thought it was far too below her.
He was kind of swarmy and condescending, too.
Yes, he was, yeah. Yeah, he was, but where you've got him batting against Einstein, you've also got the way that Miller and Scully work together quite well.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was your balance there. Once again, you had that balance nicely in the middle.
Was the Scully-Mulder relationship, the shipping, the romance, did it start with Scully? Because the way this seems to be Einstein crushing on Miller and Miller maybe oblivious to the whole thing, was it that same way with the two of them?
I don't recall. I honestly don't recall.
It's a small thing. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I was out of the X-Files by the time they'd started. In the second movie, they are.
Mm-hmm.
I do not know the lead up to that, whether it happened or not. Yeah, I just don't know. See, I know that they're back together kind of thing at the end of this episode. Would you say that they're a thing, or would you say that they're just mates that like to hold hands and reminisce?
I don't know that it's mutual.
I don't know, they're walking at the very end of the episode, they're holding hands.
Which are we talking about?
The Scully and Mulder.
Oh, yeah. I would say friends. Almost like a couple that's divorced and reconciled.
Yeah.
There's an intimacy, but also a line they'll never cross again.
Yeah. Kind of in a different life, maybe things would have been better.
Yeah.
Type thing.
I was thinking for a minute you meant the other two. That I don't see as.
No, I don't think there's anything really there at the moment, and it's not in our interest to find if there's anything there, because if they did want to develop them, then it'll be too much too soon, I feel.
Yeah, you're talking about something that was 4 seasons of will they, won't they, for the original pair.
Yeah. Okay, this episode is also bookended, by sounds in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly the voice of God, or whatever they called it in there, the sirens of God, the trumpets.
Well, the closed captioning called it trumpets.
Trumpets, okay.
So, but that's just someone deciding to write that when they typed it.
Mulder hearing the trumpets at the very end of this episode, is that, once again, the suggestion from the videos and TV reports that he was watching at the very start of this episode? Is that just subliminal suggestion going into his head, and then, oh, hang on, I think I can hear a trumpet? And what are your thoughts on that? Would that also undermine the whole character of, okay, you've read about aliens, so does that actually mean that there are aliens there?
I felt like this episode was very much about not faith in a religious sense, but like a belief, the power of Mulder's beliefs, and obviously the validation of a lot of them. So I think it was. I took the thing at the end to be kind of a auditory equivalent of when in an episode they'll pan to the right and you see a half transparent version of a ghosted character kind of waving down below to the other characters in the episode.
Right. Okay.
I took that almost like, the a wave from another plane, and
this is the Force ghost.
Yes.
At the end of Return of the Jedi that no one else can see.
Yeah. Well, yes, but with not knowing I don't think it's the terrorist, but whether it's kind of a, even like that whole group, kind of like you can finally see us. Now you know you can find us when you need us. We're here when you need need us.
Oh, yeah, I suppose. Oh, don't, yeah.
But I took it as more spiritual and only for him. Like that Scully was not meant to hear it. It was either in his head or in his imagination or telepathic or...
Right. I took this as, once again, suggestion. This whole episode is about suggestion. Mm-hmm. And we saw him watching videos of it, and whether he remembered it or not, it was just suggested to him that there could be trumpets, and so he hears trumpets. But saying that, like I said before, it could possibly undermine the whole character if he's so open to suggestion that he could meet a kid and say that cornflakes can walk, and then one day I swear I saw a cornflake walking, Scully. I swear, I definitely did. I was having my breakfast and I saw a cornflake walking. And so the alien thing could just be suggestion that he's got an overactive imagination, and I don't want that. I want him to actually know and have solid evidence of aliens, etc.
Well, think back though to the weremonster and how much he just did not want to buy into that at all. The snarkiness in the last episode about the trash man.
Yep.
I mean, this was like someone who had an epiphany and turned a corner, and maybe even too much so. Like you said, it's you want him to be a little more cynical, but maybe that's meant to be as we go into the finale. There was this. We met a broken down, having given up Mulder in the pilot, who didn't believe it all anymore, and it was rekindled by the truther.
Yep.
With his talk show. And yes, he went back to work, but he didn't buy in, he didn't believe. And now here we are going to the finale, and he's at a different. He's back to super idealistic, almost super poweredly so, believer.
Yeah. Whereabouts again was this supposed to be aired?
I don't recall. It was either maybe this was supposed to be the second one. I can't remember. I know some had flipped around in order. Let's do a quick search. Original air.
I'm pretty sure you said last week's the Trash Man was supposed to be the second one, because you had the flash of the FBI badges at the very beginning, and which states that, okay, we know that they're fully within the FBI straight off the second episode. I'd imagine that this would have possibly been the fourth episode.
Let's see. I'm trying to find out of order. I'm trying to find something that says what the order would be. Such a new 21st century thing to have to think this way of like, what keywords can I use to get to my desired result?
Well, nowadays you don't need the keywords, you just need the sentence, don't you?
Yes. Here, the X-Files are out of order. Let's see. And here's why. So, Starting and ending with mythology chapters, but the hours in between were shuffled. What was filmed as episode 2, so that's Trash Man, aired as episode 4.
Okay, Trash Man, yep.
So pilot, Trash Man, Weremonster.
Then I think this one, and then...
What was filmed as episode 4 is episode 5. So this would have been after the Weremonster.
Yeah.
And then the twins and the pregnancy thing would have been 5.
Yep.
And then the finale.
Ooh, okay. Do you know what? Once it's all over, I think I'm going to go back and watch it in that order, see if it makes a difference.
Yeah, I was just thinking I might, depending on how things play out before we do our next recording, I might, even if I just do a skim or reread the recaps, just to kind of look at it in that order.
Yeah. I think it might be worth it, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. So, have we covered everything or every base that we want to cover on this episode?
I think so. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of depth to it, as you said.
No, that's true.
And we don't really know where it's going. I mean, I'm all in on this idea that these episodes, other than that, the one with the twins and the pregnancy, are just meant to be standalones. So I'm not looking for some sort of connection episode to episode at this point.
Right. Okay. Right. So next week we move on to My Struggle 2. It says.
Yes.
I'm guessing it's just a part 2 of the first episode. The plot synopsis is even shorter than this week's. It says, Mulder and Scully uncover a shocking truth with global ramifications. That could be anything. Absolutely anything. But I do feel, with the title being My Struggle 2, it's going to be connected to the first episode.
Yeah, I found it interesting. One of the things I read here at the start of this podcast referred to it as a non-miniseries format, so that it wasn't a 6-episode story. It was just a collection of episodes, but it does imply from the title like it's almost a part 1 and part 2 with 4 episodes in between. Just kind of time passing. Character development, I guess. This
doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that they want to carry on the story of the first episode that we had. Mm-hmm. And I've got no problems with that. It kind of bookends it. I don't know whether this is actually Season 10 or not. A lot of people are calling it Season 10. It's referred to as Season 10. It's also referred to as a mini-episode, mini-series. I'm going with Season 10 at the moment, and I kind of like the bookends on this. Mm-hmm. It pleases me. I knew that in the middle we'd get other jumble stuff. I'm glad we've had it. I'm glad some of it has passed us by as well. I'm looking forward to this. Unfortunately, I've seen a GIF that may or may not have spoiled stuff for me. And if it has spoiled it, oh my god, the heads are going to roll. If it hasn't spoiled it, then oh my god, why isn't that in there? I won't ruin it for you now.
Just the fact that you don't know, at least it hasn't spoiled the viewing. I mean, if you knew for certain that it was part of the episode, then you'd be stuck. But the fact that you can wonder,
yeah,
and not be 100% certain of the credibility.
I have that joy of knowing that something is in there. It just depends on whereabouts that piece slots in, and I don't know. I want it to be part of it, but I don't want it to be part of it because then that means I've been spoiled, and that's not fair.
The T-1000, he appears.
Oh no.
Well, I'll be interested to see what they do, because obviously it was filmed not knowing whether there'd be a season 11. And while I would watch a season 11, I don't want to be left with no closure at all. I mean, I'd like it to be contained in some way. There can be open-endedness. There can be threads that are not finally wound up, but to just have an I don't want to be left wondering, well, why did we bother with certain elements of the story? And I don't mind the were-monster not being back. I don't mind Einstein and Miller not being back. But I feel like there was an effort made at the beginning to say, it's not aliens, it's the government.
Yeah.
And at some point during this 6 episodes, that should be revisited.
No, that's cool. I remember at the start of these Rethinking the X-Files that I did turn around and say I'm quite happy for it to be open-ended and to be continued. I don't know, did I say cliffhanger? I'm not too sure.
No, I think you left it more just kind of, you didn't mind if it just kind of and not ended, but just if they didn't answer a lot of questions.
Yeah, I'm very happy if it's just open. I like if the last 20 minutes of Lost never happened. I think lots of questions still unanswered. That keeps me happy. I'm very happy in that sort of area, and so by come the end of this, the last episode this time round, if there's still questions that are unanswered, if we have raised questions that still have gone unanswered, I'm quite happy with that because that keeps me talking.
That's fine, but that's different than having a cliffhanger, like introducing a new dramatic thing that you're not guaranteed to get an answer to, but would need one, like something more core to the characters and the story. And
yeah, I suppose, yeah. I don't know. Just have to see how it goes. Really,
Fringe ended every season with a cliffhanger, and then had the horrible thing of might be canceled, might not, and you're like, oh my god, I just need to know what. You can't leave it like that. You can't leave it like that. You know, and the series itself does have a resolution because they did know it was the final season. But
yeah,
versus like season 2 and 3 and 4, it was like, oh my god, like good episodes, but and yeah, there's something satisfying that like, did he die? Did he not die? Oh, you know, was it all a dream? Was it not? Those are things that are good conversation, but when you really like the characters and you're kind of almost rooting for a happy ending, sometimes you're like, no, it can't end like that. She has to get out of the trap. He has to, you know, he didn't just get eaten by the alligator. What happened? You know.
I kind of like all the open-endedness. Remember end of season 1 in Lost, where it's just looking down the ladder, and everyone in the whole world was frustrated because they didn't get anything after that. And yet I'm sat there rubbing my hands going, oh my god, this is bloody good. This is so good. And yeah, if we have lots of questions, call me a happy bunny. I'll be happy.
I think that only works though because you knew you knew it was coming back.
Yeah, this is true. If we have, I don't know.
If you invested all that time and then it was kind of like, well, it might be another couple of years, and we might do a season 11. We might jump 10 years ahead in storytelling like that. That makes it tough to take those. Yeah.
Yeah. So if Walking Dead had finished at the end of season 5, I think, was it season 5? I think season 4 ended on a cliffhanger. Yes, season 4 was the first time it ended on a cliffhanger. And if it had ended there, I would have been really cheesed off. Really, I would have been so angry. I would have snapped pencils and everything. And I'm glad it came back for season 5 and 6, but then again, that's a different story. That's more of a linear story. We're not talking about, we're not jumping around in different aspects. That is one whole story that's flowing along like a big river. X-Files is lots of different stories that can be taken as an individual episode or as part of the collective.
Yeah, we don't really have any lingering questions other than why did you bother to introduce these characters? I mean, I don't mean like fringe characters, but like, you made a point of going through that whole deal with Roswell. So it seems like that should be revisited in some way. It doesn't have to have been in every episode, but I mean, you've made a point of bringing up this issue with William.
Yeah, it was important, wasn't it?
We might as well. We don't have to see William. But I mean, it should be addressed in some way. You've made a point of slipping it in. You made a point of having Scully take the quarter, and shown it a couple times. So, I mean, something has to come of that. Whether it's just seeing she's affected by it, and now it's influencing her decision making in these other cases, fine. But I mean, you made a point of doing more than just making a passing reference. So I would hope that it gets a little more attention. Some of those things.
Yeah.
But others, who cares? What happened to Svelta?
Okay, cool.
It's vaporized. How does no one miss her? Yeah, that's I certainly don't need to know Svelta's backstory now, or if we don't see the talk show host, I don't mind that now.
Oh, I don't know. I'd like, because this is a part 2. I think his disappearance has to come up because he was taken off air, and so I feel as if he's not there, then we may be missing something.
Except that Mulder and Scully don't care. Like, they haven't mentioned it once. There's no nagging kind of, where could he be, or what could have happened. They just seem to have accepted it. So just like me, I've accepted. He's just gone.
Yeah.
But even had it been mentioned in passing, or they're they're looking something up on the computer trying to find him when someone comes in, and it distracts them for an episode and they go somewhere else. But it hasn't been in the back of their minds as far as we can tell.
It'll also be interesting to see whether this My Struggle Part 2 happens immediately after My Struggle, or after all of these other episodes we've had. Did you catch my drift?
Yeah.
So they had My Struggle, they joined the FBI, and now they're part of the FBI, and then My Struggle Part 2 happens. I'll be interested to find out where that actually slots in within the timeline.
Yeah, because we've talked about some gaps and just attributed it to the reshuffling of the episode order, but that's not necessarily why.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be good. We'll have to have everyone tune back in a week and check it out.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we'll wrap up here for Babylon. Have you got anything you want to share with the world before we cut our lines?
No. I think this has been my big investment so far of time, and we'll see what happens when this is over. But certainly, I know you have a couple of podcasts you've been working on this week.
Mm-hmm. Yes, what have I been working on? I haven't mentioned it yet. Please, if you do enjoy what we're doing here and you like my dulcet tones, then please head over to blackdog.geekplanetonline.com. It's also in iTunes. It's Black Dog Podcast is, how would I describe it? It's more like a film club movie type show where myself, Lee Metcalf, Darren Barnard, Mr. Jim Moon, and the Mr. Owl as well. He's our sidekick. Talk about movies that we love or we hate, and we kind of dissect them in the most graphic and sweary type of way, I suppose, that any man could ever do. If you're not over 18, then please don't listen, because otherwise that's wrong. You should definitely be at least over 18 to listen to it, because it is very potty-mouthed. What else have we got? We got the people have been putting iTunes reviews up for us. I don't know if there's any in America or not, but we definitely got some over in the UK store. So thank you ever so much to absolutely everyone that's done that for us. We really do appreciate that. That is just helping us out loads.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and if you can spare some little change, put it in the pot, say thank you very much, buy us a cup of coffee or something like that, then please head over to Patreon patreon.com/rogue2media, and that will help everything out, and that would actually bring you more shows on more topics in the future. So thank you very much. Also, check me and Scott out on Apotheosis of a Bombast and Rethinking Lost. They're like old shows, but we did like loads of them. 103 Bombast ones and 44 Lost ones, I think it was.
Yep.
So, you know, we have a history.
Yes.
We definitely have a history. It's nice. So, yeah, please check all that stuff out, and we'll catch you next week for the end of Rethinking the X-Files for this season. It'll be on Mixlr, so go over to the pages I've mentioned before, probably in the Shonky Lab page, or maybe even on the website for this, and we'll let you know when the live recording will be of that. Okay, so I think we'll end it there. I've waffled on far too much at the very end. Thank you very much, Scott, and I will see you next week.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye-bye.